All men must serve. Faceless men most of all.
The most dangerous thing about them is the idea at their center, the belief that built them, shapes every kill they make, and the belief that Arya Stark could never fully accept. In Season 5, Episode 3, titled Hi Sparrow, Jaqen H'ghar reveals it to her directly. Not through a lecture, not through a speech, through a cup of water and a dying man's last breath. And what Arya witnesses in that moment shatters every assumption she carried into the House of Black and White about what she had come there to become. The cup of water, what actually happened at that pool, and what it meant. The scene opens on Arya sweeping. She is keeping an ear out for everything going on in the eerie House of Black and White, which does not seem to be much. The idols of death gods from every culture and city on both continents stand arrayed around her, and as she pushes her broom, she sees Jaqen H'ghar lead a supplicant, an ordinary man, visibly ill and suffering, to the central pool at the temple's heart. He offers the man a cup of clear fluid. The man drinks. He goes to pray at one of the shrines, the weeping woman of Lys, and sits down, and then he stops moving. What Arya has just watched is not an assassination. It is something considerably more difficult to process. The man came to the House of Black and White and asked for death. He was suffering. He had no other exit from that suffering. And Jaqen gave him the one the many-faced God offers, a clean, peaceful, willing death, administered with the care of a sacrament rather than the violence of a killing. Two faceless men came and removed the body through a door that was closed to Arya, and Jaqen walked away without ceremony, without drama, without any visible emotional investment in what he had just done. He had served. That was all. The fandom wiki describes the mechanism precisely. The Faceless Men believe that all of these death gods are really one god who has revealed himself to humanity in different ways, the many-faced god of death. Statues of deities represented in the sanctuary include the weeping woman of Lys and others. Every religion's death god, the stranger of the seven, the black goat of Qohor, the lion of night, the drowned god, the Faceless Men hold to be a single deity, arriving under different names to different peoples. The House of Black and White is the physical embodiment of that theology. Every god of death under one roof, all of them the same god, all of them served by the same order. When Jaqen administered that cup, he was not performing an assassination. He was conducting a religious rite. The man at the pool was not a target. He was a supplicant, and the gift of death he received was exactly what the name says, a gift. This is the revelation of Season 5, Episode 3. Not a technical secret of how the Faceless Men change their faces, not a training technique or a combat methodology. The revelation is the philosophy, and the philosophy is the opposite of everything Arya Stark came there to learn. She came for a weapon aimed at personal vendettas. What Jaqen H'ghar is showing her is an order built entirely around the abolition of personal vendettas. Where the Faceless Men came from, the origin that explains everything. Fully grasped by the Faceless Men's philosophy is what it is, and why it makes the confrontation in this scene so loaded. You need the origin story. And the origin story is one of the darkest, most quietly magnificent pieces of world building in the entire Game of Thrones universe. The Order was not founded by kings or lords or strategists. It began in the mines of Valeria before the Doom, in the volcanic pits beneath the most powerful empire the world had ever known, where slaves from every conquered nation on earth worked to death in conditions of unimaginable suffering. Those slaves prayed to every god their cultures knew, each one calling on a different deity in a different language under a different name, all of them asking for the same thing: release. The Order began in the mines of Valeria before its fall. Slaves from all over the world worked there, praying to different gods for release. One of them, known only as the First Faceless Man, answered those prayers by granting the gift of death to the most tormented slave. He began offering the gift to others who asked for it, eventually forming the Order that would later move to Braavos, far from Valeria's oppressive past. The implications of that origin are enormous. The first act of the Faceless Men was not a contract killing, it was mercy. The first person to receive the gift of death was not a political target or a paying client's enemy. He was the most tormented slave in a mine, the person whose suffering had gone beyond any point where continued existence was anything other than punishment. The first Faceless Man looked at that suffering and decided that if the gods would not end it, he would. And in that single act, giving death as a gift rather than inflicting it as a weapon, the entire theology of the Order was established. This is why the House of Black and White is simultaneously a temple and an execution site. This is why ordinary people in Braavos come to it when they are terminally ill and in pain and want a peaceful death. This is why the pool at its center offers water that kills without suffering. Faceless Men are not, at their core, an assassin guild that happens to have a religious cover. They are a religious order that happens to perform assassinations. The commercial side, financing the theological mission. They believe in serving death as a gift to those who suffer, or those whose time has come, and they do it with unnerving efficiency. They're not just skilled killers, they're philosophers of death. For them, death isn't cruel, it's balance. The confrontation, what Arya said and what Jaqen heard. After watching the man at the pool go still, Arya does what Arya Stark always does when she wants something. She asks directly. She confronts Jaqen about her duties. She wants to train in the assassin's arts, not sweep out the corners. She wants to know how to change her face. She wants to learn to become someone else. She wants the power she came there for. Jaqen H'ghar gives her, with complete calm, the one sentence that contains everything the Order is built on. Valar do Harris. All men must serve, faceless men most of all. He assures her that he will serve her in the training she wants, as long as she is willing to serve the many-faced god in turn. But then he delivers the diagnosis that she cannot argue with. Her revenge consumes her, and he foresees, quite accurately, that she would only use such knowledge for her own gains. She is not looking at the pool and seeing a religious act. She is looking at it and calculating how she can acquire whatever skill produced it and redirect it at Cersei Lannister. And Jaqen can see that calculation on her face as clearly as if she had said it aloud. Then comes the exchange that is the philosophical heart of the scene. Arya looks around at the statues of death gods from a dozen cultures and points out something apparently obvious. There is no many-faced god among them. She can see the stranger. She can see the weeping woman. She cannot find the specific deity Jaqen claims to serve. And Jaqen's response is the thesis statement of the entire Order. He tells her she is looking at the many-faced god right now. He is all of them. Every death god that has ever been worshipped, in every culture, across every sea, is one god. The faces change, the god does not. The parallel between that theology and the Faceless Men's technique is not accidental. The god has many faces, but one identity. The Faceless Men have many faces, but, and this is the demand that Arya cannot fulfill, no identity. The god wears faces. The acolyte must abandon theirs. To serve the many-faced god, the servant must become the inverse of the god. Where the god is one beneath many faces, the servant must be nothing beneath any face they wear. That is no one, not a disguise, not a persona, genuine, total absence of self. A game of faces, a test Arya doesn't know she's already failing. What makes Season 5, Episode 3 so carefully constructed is that the conversation between Arya and Jaqen at the pool is not the only test she faces in the episode. Immediately after, she is visited in her cell by the girl the show identifies as the wife, a young person of indeterminate appearance, whose opening question is simply, "Who are you?" When Arya doesn't answer satisfactorily, she is struck across the face with a switch. The question comes again, another strike, again. This is the game of faces, the central training exercise of the House of Black and White, and Arya is in the middle of it without realizing she has started. It is not a test of combat skill or physical endurance. It is a test of whether she can tell the truth about who she is, not the performance of identity, the actual excavation of it. And it is, at this stage in her training, a test she cannot pass, because every answer she gives is contaminated by Arya Stark. She cannot answer "Who are you?" truthfully and arrive at no one, because she is someone, and she is not ready to stop being that person. Jaqen enters the cell, looks at Arya's possessions surrounding her, and delivers the line that crystallizes the problem precisely. A man wonders how no one came to be surrounded by Arya Stark's things. He and the apprentice leave, and Arya is left with the understanding that the test is not a future event, it is happening right now. And the evidence of her failure is spread across her room. The clothes, the coins, and most importantly, Needle, the sword Jon Snow gave her when she left Winterfell in Season 1. The physical embodiment of who she is and where she came from. What Needle represents, the thing she refuses to throw into the sea. The most revealing moment of Season 5, Episode 3 is not the pool scene. It is what happens afterward, on the docks of Braavos. When Arya makes the decision about her possessions, she goes to the waterfront and begins discarding everything. Her clothing goes into the sea. Her coins go into the sea. Every physical marker of Arya Stark of Winterfell goes into the water one by one, and with each piece thrown, she is performing the identity erasure the Order requires. It is an extraordinary act of discipline, for a girl her age, the willingness to physically discard the artifacts of her own history. She gets rid of everything, and then, she gets to Needle. She holds it for a long moment, and she cannot do it. She does not throw it. Instead, she finds a crevice in the stone surge wall of the harbor and hides it there, tucked into a gap in the rocks, invisible to anyone who does not know where to look. She does not discard her identity. She conceals it. And that distinction is the key to everything that follows in her Bravos arc across seasons 5 and 6. Arya hides Needle within the crevice of a rock pile wall, and soon Jaqen takes her down to the second level of the house, where she and the wife undress and prepare those who come for death's release. She goes down to the second level, having buried her identity in the harbor wall, not abandoned it. That buried sword is going to matter. The academic analysis of Arya's character as an epic hero makes this explicit. Arya's inability to release her need for vengeance leads Arya to become blinded by the Faceless Men in punishment for stealing from the many-faced god. Every punishment she receives during her training, the caning during the Game of Faces, the blindness after she kills Meryn Trant outside of a sanctioned mission, is the Order detecting that Needle is still in the wall, that Arya Stark is still alive, behind every face the training asks her to wear. Hall of Faces, what lies beneath the house and what it demands. By the time Arya has completed enough of her early tasks to be trusted with more of the Order's secrets, she is taken deeper into the House of Black and White. And what the show reveals in the lower chambers is the most genuinely unsettling image in the entire Bravos arc: the Hall of Faces. The deepest level of the House of Black and White is the Hall of Faces, an enormous vault with stone pillars. The faces of the hundreds who drank the poisoned water in the atrium are kept here individually in small alcoves to be employed as the basis for the face-changing abilities of the Faceless Men. The people who came to the House of Black and White in suffering, who drank from the cup at the pool, who died peacefully in the weeping woman's arms, their faces did not go with them. They were kept, preserved, used. The gift of death was accepted, and in exchange the dead donated their physical identity to the Order that gave it to them. The Hall of Faces is the transaction made visible. The Faceless Men give death, and death gives them faces. It is a closed economy of identity, running on the currency of other people's endings. The show built this as a fully realized set. Instead of making one pillar slightly taller than the actors and doubling it up digitally, multiple pillars over 30 feet tall were constructed to fill out the entire room. The scale was deliberate. The Hall of Faces needed to feel genuinely vast, a repository of thousands of identities accumulated across centuries, because the point is that the Faceless Men are not just a guild of individuals. They are an institution built on a systematic collection of the thing Arya refuses to give up. Every face on those pillars belonged to someone who had a name, a history, a life. The Faceless Men wear those faces only because they have no face of their own to return to. Why Jaqen smiled when she said she was Arya Stark, the ending nobody expected. The most misread moment in Arya's entire Bravos arc is the final scene with Jaqen H'ghar at the end of season 6. She has killed the life. She has placed the wife's face in the Hall of Faces. She walks back into the House of Black and White and faces Jaqen, who tells her that a girl has finally become no one. And Arya looks at him and says, "A girl is Arya Stark of Winterfell, and she's going home." Then Jaqen smiles. That smile is the scene within the scene. Because Jaqen H'ghar is not disappointed. He is not surprised. He is not angry. The question that analysis of this moment keeps circling is, why would a faceless man, whose entire order is built around the elimination of identity, smile when his most difficult student announces she is keeping hers? The most compelling reading is this. Jaqen tells Arya that she has finally become no one by killing the wife, but she refuses this and leaves the house as Arya Stark of Winterfell, to Jaqen's approval. His approval, not his failure. He recognizes in her refusal something the House of Black and White itself may have been designed to find: a person who has mastered the tools of the Faceless Men: disguise, patience, reading rooms, strategic misdirection, and chosen to remain herself anyway. She did not become no one. She became Arya Stark, who can wear other faces, which is something the Order's theology did not account for. Death may have many faces, but in Game of Thrones, it is only Arya who manages to master them in order to become death itself, while remaining the one person the Faceless Men could never fully absorb. She is the only student in the Order's history who took everything the House of Black and White had to offer, refused the one price it demanded for it, and walked out with both. The Sword Needle was still in the wall of Bravos Harbor the whole time. Arya Stark was still in the girls sweeping the temple floor the whole time. The Faceless Men trained the most formidable assassin of her generation and never succeeded in making her no one. They only succeeded in making her better at being Arya Stark of Winterfell. The scene in Season 5, Episode 3 where Jaqen reveals the dark secret of the Order is, in retrospect, also the scene where the show reveals Arya's dark secret. She was always going to refuse to pay the price. She just needed 2 seasons to prove she had earned the right to.